Yeah, kind of. It's Amadeus, my husband. I live with him and his grandparents, so it's his grandma's cat.
Nice.
She actually got her because they had a little mouse in the house.
Oh, shut.
And they got her so that it could hunt the mouse, and it did. Within the first week, it caught the mouse.
Shut up.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, well, they're good pest control.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
You didn't have to call it.
She eats crickets. Like, if there's a spider, we're like, Mel, go get it. Yeah. Yeah, she's really good at hunting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like an animalistic. They're still very, like,
Yeah,
obviously animalistic.
And like you were saying, kind of depends on the breed of cat. Like, so because she is more of like a hunter, she is like more feisty. Like, she'll snap within 1 second. Like, she'll be purring and then she like slash at you because she's sick of you now. Like, she's very bipolar like that.
Dude, with cats, like, because I've never had one, but I think that I learned so much with them because it's like you realize like that cats show you boundaries. They're like, I don't like this and I don't like it now, and then you're like, oh, and then you're like, oh, well, I'm sorry. And so usually with dogs they're just like pet me, you know, and you're like, okay. But with cats they're more like, no.
Yeah,
and then you're like, okay.
They're particular. It's funny because she drinks water with her paws. Like, she doesn't put her face into the bowl. Like, she do that.
Like
she scoops it out and licks her paw. It takes her forever to drink water, but she's always been like that too. It's really funny.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, so she's a very interesting cat. So she's technically not my cat, but you know, she's there with us at the house. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, like, I stalked you on Instagram because I obviously you're a very mysterious person in real life, but on Instagram
I share a lot.
Yeah. I know, yeah, which is nice. You know what? I was following your journey. Did you go to Big Bear? Was it Big Bear? Okay, so and I was like, whoa, I really like those pictures. But how did you get into like the art scene? Like, what was that? Like, was it like through school or?
Well, I've always liked drawing.
Yeah.
Like, way back when I was like little, like we had people come over and I would do like their portrait. Like, my tias have some like portraits that I did of them when I was like little.
That's
so I always
cool.
liked drawing. Yeah, my parents were always like super encouraging. You know, even if it was like ugly drawings, they'd be like, "Wow, Melissa!" Like, you know, they're super like that. So I think I was like, I'm gonna be an artist. So since I was little, I really wanted to. Yeah. And then when I was in high school, I took art classes, and then that's when I was like, okay, yeah, I really want to do this. This is fun. That's so
cool.
Yeah.
And it's awesome that they were really encouraging.
Yeah, I think, I mean, they had to work a lot, so I feel like for their kids, they were just like, do what you want to do, follow your passions, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then I went to SDSU and I got a bachelor's in fine arts because I wanted to study. Wow. I wanted to do nutrition too because at the time I was like really into health and fitness. But I couldn't pass like a chemistry class for the life of me. Like, so I was like, okay, never mind. That's out the window. I guess I'll just do art.
Yeah. Dude, that's so cool. Because I see that there's like different mediums of like you playing with like watercolors. And then I even saw some embroidery art. Yeah. And I was like, wow, was there like a particular like medium that you were really in that like you just basically like that sold your heart?
I think oil painting, that's the one that I mean, I do like the other mediums, but I think oil painting is just a little bit like more challenging. So I think I'm drawn to it because I'm like, no, I'm going to get it right. I'm going to perfect it. You know what I mean?
Because oil takes a little longer to dry, no?
Yeah.
How's the process with that?
It depends on like the, you know, because you have to mix it with medium to make the oil paint a little bit softer. Yeah, because you could paint it straight out of the tube. It just comes out like butter, you know, like it's just really thick. And if you want it to dry or whatever, if you want to get different effects, use medium. So I use linseed oil for my medium, and that usually makes the paint dry within like 3 or 4 days, depending how thick you layer it. Yeah.
Because I've like kind of messed around with like paint. Nothing, I mean, I would just kind of like fuck around, you know, nothing crazy. But I had like gotten some oil paints, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna mess around with these, and like I didn't know you had to mix it with anything.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense, because then I would like cake it on, and I'm like, this shit ain't drying.
Yeah, I mean, technically it would dry after like a couple months in that case, but that's why people use like different mediums to thin it out or to just change it. So because it takes longer to dry, it's like you can mix colors more easily. Like if you want to go back to it, like, oh, actually it came out too pink, let me add more blue or whatever. You know, wow. So that's one of the things that I like about it, that you can add a lot of subtleties because it's wet for a good amount of time, you know, that you have that opportunity to like go back. And that's why I like oil paint. But with my like when I do portraits and everything, I draw everything out first, and I lay down all like what I'm gonna do, so that then the painting process goes more smoothly. Because then if it's not drying and it's like, man, I messed up and I need to wipe it off, you know, it's not like you can be like, oh, I'll paint over it. It's like you have to wait 3 days to paint over it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like if it's in an area that you can't easily wipe off, or if there's too much around it that you know, would just make it too messy. Yeah. Yeah. So I saw, it has its good and its bad, but
overall you like it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I saw Mama Chui portrait.
Oh yeah, that was my grandma.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it mom's side, dad's side?
My mom's side.
Nice.
Yeah. She was she lived in TJ. Yeah. Most of her life, you know, so we would go visit her a lot. And in her last few years, she passed away already. Okay. In her last few years that she was with us, she lived with us, you know. And I actually did that portrait like a couple months after she passed, because I was like still like, yeah, it was an unexpected, even though she was older, I think it was like for just all of us as a like our nuclear family, you know. Yeah. It was just like we just didn't expect her to pass. Yeah. You know? So I painted her just like as a like, I guess, mourning process. Yeah. It was like my first year of college too. Whoa. So it was like my first like piece, you know, like college piece or whatever that I did. Yeah, she means a lot to me. I think a lot of my art is inspired by like her, and
because I see a lot
of
the
memories
portraits.
I had her.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, I mean, I never got to meet your grandma or anything, but in the portrait, you really captured like joy in it. Yeah, because it's like a great like smile, and then you know, like I feel like, you know, like I said, I never got to meet her or anything, but it's like I think that you really captured a lot of like that joy, and you know.
Yeah, it's funny because like she was a very like, I think she was a very self-conscious person. I know she probably had a lot of trauma from her childhood and just like adulthood and everything that you know women from before just kind of had to keep a lot of things and deal with a lot of things, but they didn't show that, you know. They'd always make happy grandchildren and happy kids. So I really admired her about her, but at the same time, for me, it's kind of like I don't want to follow in the same footsteps. You know, I do want to pursue my passions, and I do want to do like the things that I know maybe she didn't get to do, or you know what I mean, like continue that her struggle was worth it for me and my future kids and our future generations, you know.
And breaking those cycles, because it's like, you know, like I feel like exactly how you feel with like my grandma, where it's like, I'm like, you know, everything that she could have done or she wished she could have, like, I want to be able to like do it, not just because it's like they, you know, took like this risk in like coming to like this country and like not knowing what to expect, but also because it's like, you know, she didn't have that opportunity, you know. Like it wasn't like with us where we're like, hey, we get to go to college and we get to do like, you know, especially like in our, you know, in like our work, like if you really think about it, like our work is like, you know, you paint, you know, you do all that kind of stuff, and so in all reality, like it is work, but it's like you're doing what you really love, you know. And I don't feel like my mom
we're
or my
privileged
grandma
in that sense that we have those opportunities. Yes.
I don't think my mom was like, I'm gonna stay at home, and you know, like I don't think she ever had that opportunity or luxury of even thinking about that, you know. So it's like super blessed to like even be able to, you know, say like, oh yeah, you know, like I paint all day, and
you know. But like I remember asking her once, like like when women had the right to vote,
Yeah.
I like when I was like a teenager, I was like, were you like, how was that living through that? And she was like, oh yeah, I remember when it was on the news or whatever, and yeah, I voted. Like, she was really proud of that, and I was like, that's great, but I know there was like other things, probably things I don't even know of that went through her, that she went through her life, but she was always like a real like, she really always showed us like unconditional love to all of us, like to my siblings, to my parents, to everyone, so I feel like subconsciously I still kind of try to put that in my art,
That's
like,
awesome.
Yeah.
You do a lot of corazones.
Yes.
Is there something behind that?
Yeah, and I feel like it ties back to that
Yeah.
I felt like she had such a big heart because like she was really sensitive.
What's your sign? Do you know?
I don't know. She was born May 7th. I don't know what.
Taurus.
Maybe. I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure, but and in a way, I feel like it's a good thing and a bad thing to be so loving or to be so giving. You know what I mean? It has its up and downs, and I kind of like relate to her in that way. And I did I don't know if you saw the one that I did, but I did a comic of her. Yes, with a smile, because that's like one of the earliest memories I have is of her like, no me tomen la foto, or you know what I mean, or hiding behind my grandpa or whatever to hide. And like when I was little, it was just like, oh, my grandma just doesn't like pictures. But as I got older and I started being self-conscious about myself and going through puberty and all of that stuff, and now older and stuff, I'm like, man, that's really sad to not even like your own face or to want to hide it, and like I know for a fact she would never want me to feel that way, and I would never want her to feel that way about her, you know what I mean? Especially since I saw her with like such loving eyes, to me she was beautiful, even though she wasn't traditionally beautiful, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that too, I take a lot to heart, to just like love what you are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like you take so long in your life to like actually realize who you are, what your body is, like who, like, all these imperfections, that you're basically like drilled in your head to be like, that's not perfect and it's not beautiful and you're not brown enough and you're not light enough and you don't have blue eyes, but you have, and so your hair's not straight, your hair, and so all these things that play like this gigantic role in basically breaking you down and making you feel a certain kind of way just so you could reinvest in all these products, But at the same time, it's like, it's nice to have that to where you're like, this is who I am, and
just accepting, kind of like you don't have to be like in love with yourself, but you can at least accept it and allow
this is
yourself.
what I got to work with, so
this is me, take it or leave it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And Amadeus took it.
Yeah, he took it
and married it.
Yes.
But dude, so I love that little comic that you did, and it's like you, but in the background, in like the little frame, there's the heart. And so I kept seeing that in your Instagram, and I was like, and so I love it because it's like it really tied everything back into it. And then I saw the nopal heart, so all these kind of different things that I kept seeing, and I was like, oh wow. So the heart, is it tying into like your grandma or any kind of?
And I think too, it just like, for me, it's a visual representation of like being vulnerable and like the rawness of being human, or you know what I mean? I think I really appreciate art that shows a lot of like vulnerability, and I think I kind of try to portray that in my art, but sometimes when you're trying to be like subtle but not too subtle, so I think I kind of just chose other than the fact that I like the colors in it too, like the reds and the pinks, and with blue, like I think those are like my two favorite colors to work with, like pink and blue, you know? So I think that's just why I keep using it, and I keep trying to rework it in different ways.
Because, dude, it was really cool because I remember that, like, you did for the art crossing, you did that really cool, like, piece of, like, an open chest, and then there's, like, a butterfly.
Yeah. I was going to do a heart, but then I was like, that's too obvious for a heart to be in the middle of the chest. So then that's why I did a butterfly to change it up a little.
Beautiful. Did you ever sell it?
No,
Do you still have it?
Yeah, I still have it there. Yeah, I made prints of it recently, so I'm like barely dipping my feet into the whole merch and everything because I don't know how to do that yet.
That's super cool though, because I was going to ask about that because I know that you did the Frida painting.
Yeah.
That was really super cool, and you did it for the Luna Bloom art show, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember like on weekends I'm like super all over the place and like don't get to see the Instagram until like at the end of the day when you're like, all right, shoes off, you can relax. And so I'm like going through and you're like, I sold all of my prints and I was like, damn, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So which is awesome because that was a really cool painting that you did too.
Thank you. Yeah. I think it's funny because I think it's the first piece that I've done that wasn't a commission, because like since January I've just been doing commissions, so like people's pets and family members and stuff, which is fun, but there's just like a lack of creativity that kind of or, you have certain boundaries that so I feel like this piece I was able to be like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, like nobody tell me what the rules are, like I'll just do what I want, you know. And I feel like that kind of came across because a lot of people liked it. Like I had a lot of messages, like even when I just posted it on, I think it was like Friday, like the day before, I had like 5-6 different people like, hold me one here, and like they Venmo me right away and they were like, please save me one. So when it came to the weekend, I sold out so quickly because like half of them I had already sold.
That's
on Friday.
awesome.
Yeah,
I'm really excited for you to start doing like merch because it's like,
yeah, me too. That's what I'm like in right. The place I got the prints at, I wasn't too happy with the colors. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, not that place. Let me try this place. So I'm just kind of testing out different really places cool, so then I can be more consistent, obviously,
Was there like a specific kind of shift where I know that you got your space in June, like your art space. Yeah. And it was like, that had to have been like a huge step for you.
It was. I was laid off from my job because of COVID.
Where were you working?
I was working at the Timken Museum of Art in Balboa Park. Yeah. That's and they're under construction and everything, so that's why they're and I'm still working for them technically. They're just not open yet. Yeah. But yeah, and then I had just moved into my husband's house with his grandparents in January. And I with my art, I like to do a little larger scale, and I kind of get a little bit messy. So I was like, I don't want to be making cochinero here. So that's kind of when I started thinking, I should get a studio. I should just look if there's somewhere, or even like a storage space, because I had a lot of artwork that like, I didn't want to have it just. I have a lot of old artwork and sketchbooks that I haven't gotten rid of. So
that's so cool.
So I was like, at least a storage space for me to put that away. Yeah. And that's kind of when I saw a space come up, and I just went for it because I was like, it's okay. I'll use my savings and my unemployment to pay for this right now, just so that I can have that space. Because I had thought about it before, like 2019 or something, after I graduated college, but they were never available, or they were way out of my budget, like they were too big, and I was like, okay, I can't pay that. Yeah. So that one, it just seemed to like happen like in the perfect timing, that it's like that's I wasn't working, I had the savings, I really liked the spot, so yeah. And I honestly, I didn't use it for like the first like 3 months or something because I was real scared of COVID and everything, because obviously we lived with his grandparents and they were high risk. So I was like, no, I'm not going to be going out or anything. So I basically used it as a storage space. I brought up all my paintings, everything, and I left it there. But then I got more comfortable, as things started opening up and everything. So then I started using it, and I'd leave. I didn't have, because my space has a window. Yeah. But I didn't have a curtain. Some people would peek in there and watch me paint. So then I was like, maybe I should start opening my door. So I did, and then people would talk to me, and just little by little I was like, okay, maybe I can actually be like an open business place and not just because I was thinking it was more of a private studio. That was my intention to use it, but people got curious, so then I was like, I might as well give the people what they want.
We love, like, I love watching you on Instagram and doing all that kind of stuff, and you kind of messing around and just like, the little hints of like your life and who you are, but what I also saw a lot of is the body like portraits. I love those because there are a lot of them. They're not like the traditional, like, this is a perfect body, or what someone would consider like perfect.
Yeah,
and so I love those. I think there was like lonjas and tan lines or something like that. Like, I love that. Yeah. Like, was that like
that was a
live
class,
painting?
Yes, that was a live painting class or live drawing class that I took in college, and it was really fun. It was like not what I expected at first, you know, because you see like on TV or movies like, oh, like the model, but it was not. I mean, they're models, but they're not the typical body type of models, you know. It was, you know, men in their 50s, women in their 60s, and it was really like cool to see like these different body types and how you can interpret that into drawing, you know, because it's like, where do you get those references, really?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
No, and you did such a great job.
Thank you.
There, like the
it
one that was,
teaches you a lot.
Yeah, the lonjas and the tan lines one. I was like, whoa, that, like, you basically like made it to where it looked perfect like that. Oh. You know, where I was like, you could see tan lines.
Yeah.
And you could see lonjas, you know? But it was really cool. So how was it like when someone comes in and they're like naked and you're like...
It's actually... I kind of think of it of now, like, when you go to the doctor's office and you have to do a physical. Yeah. It's very like that. It's not, like, snickering. You know, everyone's adults there, and it's just very, like, professional. And most of the time, the model is, like, friendly, you know, and they're, like, afterwards they'll walk around, oh, you drew this, oh, that, you know what I mean? Like, it was very, like, nice like that, or they'd be like, oh, let me know, is this pose okay? What do you guys think? Like, it was very professional.
That's, you know? So crazy.
Yeah.
I would have been like, oh God.
Yeah. I know that's what you'd expect, but I don't know if maybe it was just the environment of the professor there and the models there. You know, that was my only experience. So I don't know how it is in different colleges or workshops or whatever it happens. But for at least for there, it felt like a very safe and like just, yeah, I guess professional environment.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we need that kind of representation. Like when I was doing like tailoring, you know, you see all kinds of totally different bodies. And so for a long time, like, you know, you watch movies and you're like, so that's what boobs look like. And then you're like, you know, and they're perfect boobs. And then you're like, oh, my boobs don't look like that. And then like you meet real people and then you're tailoring their bathing suit or doing just basic tailoring. And then you're like, oh, other people have different boobs too, you know? So it's good to have like that kind of representation, because then you're not like, what's wrong with my body? Yeah. And then what's, you know, and so because usually like what they're going to show on like a film is going to be all perfection and, you know, this and that.
Photoshopped or whatever. Oh, yeah.
Video
shopped. I don't know.
Yeah. Whatever they do, you know? But yeah, so I love that. I was like, wow, like, you know, because I was really curious, like, how the experience was and how, you know, how many did you do of those?
Well, I had the class twice a week. So I think, and I took it for 2 semesters. So like a whole year kind of.
Whoa.
I think when I did my sophomore and the other one, I did my junior or something like that. But, yeah, so it was twice a week. So at least one of the days we'd have a model.
Wow.
So semesters like 3 months. So yeah, I guess once a week.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and it's really good practice because it's so different drawing in life than like a picture, you know? Yeah. And it's funny because you think like, oh no, it's fine, but I feel like people who are wanting to do more like realistic portraiture or any of that, they really need to invest in some time into live drawing. And it doesn't have to be a nude live model. It could just be like your friend sitting in front of you. You know what I mean? Or the apple actually in front of you as opposed to a picture of an apple, you know?
Yes.
So I feel like in that, it really helped like refine those type of skills, you know?
Nice.
Yeah.
That's so true, because it's like you get like the shading and like how this sits and like dimensions.
The way the light hits people also is way different when you see it in a picture than like in person.
Exactly. Yeah. Have you ever seen The Office?
I have not all seasons though. I've seen a few episodes.
Yeah, there's like an episode, I guess, like the main girl, she's like going to art school and stuff, and everyone's like super doubting her. They're like, "Oh, art school, cool. Like you're gonna be like a starting artist kind of thing." And so she like does like little paintings, like little drawings of like buildings and stuff. So she draws like the building, and someone's like, "Wow, that's weird. Like you got shadows in like 2 different directions." And so that's where it was like, you know, funny because you're like, she was like, oh, I didn't realize it. But it's like, you know, because obviously she's like, maybe I shouldn't have painted it in 2 different like times. Because it's like she got like a shadow like at 5 o'clock and then she got one like, you know, in the morning. That has a lot
to do with it. Yeah.
But I mean, was there like a pandemic kind of shift where you were like, I'm laid off, I'm not doing anything, like what am I gonna do with my life? Or was this always like the plan?
I think it was always the plan because I had taken a course at SDSU in which we had guest speakers come in, and there was this one jewelry maker, who had mentioned, she was like, oh yeah, get your space in Logan, like, or she said she had a space in Logan, and that was kind of when I was like, I think this was like maybe 2017, 2018. And that's kind of when I started coming to La Bodega shows, and kind of I was like, this place is so nice. Like, I feel at home here. You know, so I was like, man, that'd be really nice, like, far away hope in the future. You know? But then, you know, obviously I graduated, and then I got hired at that museum. And I liked working there. But my direction, at least during that time, I was like, okay, I'm going to try to get my teaching credentials, and I'm gonna start trying to be like in more like arts in school, you know.
Nice.
That was kind of like my career path that I was thinking, because I kind of did think like having a studio I just didn't have time for it, or I just was too much of a leap, you know. So I just kind of was like, oh, maybe sometime if I ever have the opportunity. And then the opportunity did come. So then I think that's what happened. I got laid off, and I was really thinking about it. And I got a little bit depressed too, because it was like, man, this like 4-year plan that I had in mind, you know, I was going to go to school during this summer, and I was going to do this and that. Obviously COVID happened, and it didn't seem like it was in my future anymore with schools being closed and everything. I was like, who's going to want to hire an art teacher when the schools are closed, you know? So, yeah, I think it was, during that month, I was just really thinking about it, and I was like praying about it, and I was like, I need to do something. And then it kind of like popped up on my feed, because I followed, I think it's like Barrio Logan Studios or something like that on Instagram, and it was like, oh, an available one. So I was like, I'm just going to go for it. And I think I messaged Chris like that Tuesday, and he answered me like that Friday or something like that, and then I saw it like on Monday, and then he was like, it's yours if you want it. I was like, okay, yes, I want it. Like,
that's so
it was like
crazy.
within a week that it all happened. And it was funny because I told Amadeus that I was thinking about it, you know, like that thing, I was thinking about it, and then I did it. I literally, like, the next week I was like, I got it, I'm getting it. And he was like, great, like that's cool.
Awesome. That's awesome. So like your family, they've always been super supportive of like your art journey.
Yeah, they have.
That's awesome.
My parents have always been I feel like they've always been creative in their own ways, you know. Like my dad's like super into music, and my mom, I had mentioned before, she really likes fashion and like crafts and stuff. So I feel like when I would show them like a painting or a drawing, they'd always be like, wow, that's great. And when I told them that I wanted, or that I had gotten a studio in Logan, at first they were like, oh, like a storage space? And I was like, pues sí, but a little bit of both, you know. I kind of tried to explain to them, and they're like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. It's not too much, because they were paying for a storage space for their tools and stuff. And they were like, pues, that's how much you pay for a storage space, so yeah, I guess it's fine if it doesn't work out, like, you know. And so they were like not worried or anything like that. And then once I started opening them up, and then I showed them and I brought them, they like they do flooring, so they put the carpet in my studio.
Shut up.
Yeah, they're so sweet. They've always been like, when I got into SDSU, my dad was like, oh, I'm so proud that you even got in. I don't care if you graduate. I'm just happy that you got in. Like, that's an achievement for me. Like, and it's funny because he's like proud of all of us. One of my older sisters is into film.
Nice.
And then my other sister is like kind of like in the medical field. So when he's like at jobs and he's doing people's floors and stuff, and you know they ask like, oh, what do your daughters do? Da, da, da. And he's just like, oh, well, my daughter's a doctor, and my other daughter is she's the director of the museum, and she has a studio, and this other, you know, she's a director. Like he just
really knows how to hype you guys up. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
that's like a proud dad right there.
Yeah. So it's nice. It's nice having that validation and support.
Especially from family, because it's like, you know, like you said that your parents work so much, you know, and like I know with my mom and my dad, I remember I was telling my dad once, I was like, I want to be an artist, and he's like, pues nunca vas a comer, and I was like, what? Aww. And so I was like, I didn't get it, you know? And so he's like, maybe like.
And I know that kind of comes from like you worry for your kids or whatever, but still it kind of hurts.
Because I feel like obviously like with the pandemic shift and stuff like that, like it really shook people up where they were like, am I really going to go back to like waiting tables and doing all that kind of stuff? Or should I really like feed like my soul, you know, and like what is gonna make me happy? And in all reality, it's like, what is gonna make you happy, you know? Because it's like nothing's guaranteed, right? Like it's not. And so it's like you can't take any of this crap with you.
I think
I'm gonna try it though.
I think I kind of went through that mental process that I had this plan of like I kind of planned out my next 2 years, you know, after we had gotten married and everything. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, because I like to plan things out. I really like that. So when the pandemic hit and all of that, my plans were shattered. I was like, this can happen at any moment. Like this happened to be a pandemic, but I don't know, you know, I can't always plan for the future. So I kind of
so true.
Like I can, but you know, not to that extent that I'm depending on those plans. You know, I kind of just have to let things be. So I think that's why I kind of got the courage to just go for it, you know, and try it. And I'm like I'm really hard on myself because I feel like I know I have potential to do something really cool or just something really like satisfying for myself, you know. So I was like, there's no point in planning so much if a pandemic's gonna hit and it's gonna change everything.
And it was like so unpredictable. Like it was like, because everyone was really anticipating for it to be 2 weeks, and then you're gonna be like, all right, we're back to like normal. And then like a year and a half later, and you're like, oh,
and we're still like, some cases are rising in certain like states, and it's like it's still unpredictable. So it's kind of like, pues ni modo, I'm just gonna roll with it.
And it's like, and it's really like that kind of stuff, right? Where it's like it woke up so many people where they were like, am I really going to go back to doing this that like never, you know, made me feel like great? Or am I going to take that risk and just enjoy that ride of not knowing what was going to happen, you know? And so I think obviously planning is good, but then at the end of the day, it's like, well,
nothing
it might not happen. So that's the scary part, you know, of like, I think the scary part is like planning and then it doesn't go your way and then you're like, oh crap, because then usually when we plan, we don't plan for a plan B, you know, and so then you're just kind of like, oh fuck, there's no plan B. what do I do? You know, but that's super cool though. Like I'm glad that you're in the art hub. How has that experience been with you?
It's been really nice. Like I said, I had been to Logan before for some events, and I always like was like, man, the people are so nice here, and like I feel at home because I'm Mexican, obviously. So I'm like, el barrio, you know. But there, I think, well, I was there before they opened up more of the studios. So it was just maybe like 5 of us that were really there all the time. And like all of them have been super nice and supportive. So it's just been a really nice, like,
atmosphere. Nice.
Yeah,
because you had been doing art shows at La Bodega. You did the mermaid show. Super cool.
But you know what, the thing is that I would go drop off my piece, I would go look at the stuff, and then I'd go back home. I hated networking. I still do. I don't like talking to people. Like I get too self-conscious and nervous.
Dude, me too. I have like that social anxiety of like, I remember when I had just opened up my business, man, he's like, you have to go network, and I'm like, where? And I'm like, ugh. Like, how do you, like, I don't I don't want to talk about myself. Or, you know, and it's like, So, that I have like, if you're in my space, like I could talk to you about sewing all day long, but having to go out and be like, hey.
Yeah, like, I'm this artist. Like, that's my piece. Like, I'd be like, quick, take a picture. Okay, vámonos. Like, I was literally like that. So I think starting there, and I think one of the first people, Ceci from Pinup Style and Boutique, when she was still there, she was one of the first ones that started talking to me, because there I'm going with my keys, like, hurrying, and so she's like, oh, you're the new tenant? Like, here, like, she, like, got my name and everything, and we started talking, and then she was like, oh, just so you know, like, she was real friendly, and I was like, oh, this is nice. And then they all started introducing themselves to me, so it was like, oh, it's a community of people who love art. That's really cool, and like who are unique business people. So I think that kind of really helped me. It kind of worked out that it was during pandemic, because there wasn't a lot of people coming through anyway, so I was able to like loosen up a little bit and get used to talking to people, like, even if it was just like one person walked in here today, like, you know.
But that's totally your Libra side.
Yes, I think being like in a community definitely helps you as an artist, or even as a creative in general. Yes. Like, you need a community to rely on to support you, or just simply to like give you feedback from their own experiences, you know?
Yeah. Because everyone in there is like super creative. Like, because it's like you've met Michael. Mm-hmm. He's freaking awesome, and it's like,
I love his work.
Yeah, I know, me too. I'm like, you know, I'm still waiting to like, I'm gonna ask him to come
and talk.
But you know, I love, you know, like, I love watching like his stuff, and then it's like, it's really cool to actually have a community of different artists, because like that you could get tips, you know, and people are willing to be like, hey, you know, this printer that I use for like my prints, this guy I recommend as opposed to that one, and you know, their turnaround time's faster, and
that's
you know,
what I did after my prints that I didn't like how they came out so much. I asked Mary. I was like, Mary, where do you get your prints? And she was like, let me show you, girl. And she gave me like her whole list, and like, otherwise I wouldn't know that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
that's the cool thing about being in that hub too, because there's a lot of amazing artists, you know, that have been doing it for so long, you know. So then it's like, once you start to get into merch, you know, which is, oh my God, like, I'm really excited for you to start getting into that, because it's like, that's another way of like, obviously, like, where people get to support you, you know?
Yeah.
Because sometimes people can't afford like a big painting or something that's a little bit more expensive, but like a print.
It's more doable. You know, it's funny because like I said before, that I feel like I know where my potential is, so I'm kind of like hard and like disciplined on myself. Yeah. Like, even when I was in school, like, I don't know why I would like try really hard, like, to be like straight A, even if it didn't really matter, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do all these commissions, and that's gonna help me practice my whatever. So then when I want to do what I want, you know, creatively, I'll have the skill for it.
Yes.
And basically everyone's paying me for me to practice, you know, as opposed to me just sitting at home trying to figure, you know, drawing eyes or drawing people. It's like, might as well have someone pay me. Yeah. And I think that worked out really well.
That's awesome.
And it kind of helped that I've actually gotten a lot of requests, like, when I'm doing commissions again, and I'm like, oh, I'm taking a little break, you know, just because I have other things to do during the summer. But it's funny because in my profile, I have my location, you know, and commissions closed, opening soon, whatever. And then I'll have people message me, hey, I want this commission, and where's your location? Go to my profile, it's right there. So
that happens all the time. Yeah. You know, I have like a little sign on like the checkout, like on my register, and it says, get 10% off if you follow us. And no one ever does it.
Really?
And I wanted to like have it there so people could be like, oh my God, 10% off is 10% off. You know, it's a good amount, you know?
Yeah. And so at least the tax or whatever it knocks off. Yeah.
But whatever. And so that's kind of like the thing where I'm like, maybe I should make it bigger, and even then they wouldn't see it, you know? But it just shows you like, we don't read anything.
That's funny.
Was there like anything that like you really, really enjoyed about doing that Frida piece? Because I know it's I had never really seen like a piece like that. Like usually people do like the very, her with like the flower backdrop or, so seeing that one, I was like, oh, that's so fucking cool.
Thank you.
I thought it was like...
It was actually because of doing portraiture. So I wanted to do a portrait of her. So I was looking at pictures of her. And, I mean, I know obviously she did portraits of herself. Yeah. And I noticed that, she did a lot of her in her cast and, very painful portraits. So then I kind of wanted to capture that, but without being, obviously, I'm not her. So I'm not trying to represent something, But I found a picture that I liked, and it's like a black and white picture of her when she has like a little mirror. She's actually painting like the communist, like, what is the little symbol or whatever. Yeah. But I was, same thing with the heart, me and my hearts or whatever, that I was like, okay, like what was in her heart? Which later I was thinking about it, I was like, man, I forgot to put a communist symbol in there. I forgot.
That is hilarious.
Because I was looking at other paintings of her, obviously she used to paint, her baby, the babies that she lost, she used to paint a lot of those, and the arrows and a lot of stuff like that. So I was like, I'll do like a little collage of everything, and I wanted to put more, but just because of the sizing of it, that's just what I ended up doing. But that's kind of why I chose to do those things, because I like the portraiture. Obviously, I have a lot of fun doing that, and then I wanted to add more like a surrealistic look. And then I really like doing backgrounds, too. Like, that's, like, one of my favorite parts, like, in the back to just do. I don't know if you've seen most of the portraits that I do of people, I usually always ask them, like, can I just do a plain background? Because I feel like it's, like, a nice stress-free end of the painting, and I like to, I do all of my paintings, I do color underneath. So it's usually pink or red or orange, like a warm tone to match the skin in the portraits. So when I'm painting the background, I like for parts of that to kind of peek through. So you can kind of tell that there's layers,
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. Some of them it's not very obvious, but for me, I know it's there. Yeah. It makes it look warmer or whatever. So that was the other reason that I did that image, because I liked that there was a lot of like background in her image. So I was like, okay, I can mess around with that.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
You know what movie I saw yesterday?
What?
Buffalo 66.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because I was stalking you.
Isn't that an interesting movie?
Dude, I got really stressed out.
Yeah.
Because of like the family,
yes.
Dynamics and like just like that, like to me I was like, oh my god, like it was a lot, and I was like, oh shit. But I saw your the portrait you did of that, and I was like, oh shit, like it was like the little photo booth, and it was you did a really good job with that. Thank
you.
Yeah, but that movie was like, it was so intense.
I had seen, because I follow some like vintage pages on pages on Instagram, and they put like 90s films or 80s, whatever, decades, different films. And I had seen screenshots of that before, and I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, it's like a kind of like funny couple who's, just whatever. Yeah. And then I watched the movie, I was like, he's so horrible to her. He's so mean the whole time. And I mean, and I understand he was messed up family, but still, he was a horrible character. And then the girl doesn't have very much of a personality other than just following him around, which is kind of messed up. But, but I mostly watched that movie because of the aesthetics. And I still like it because of the aesthetics. Like, I would watch it again just because I like the...
Do you know when it was filmed?
I don't know.
I think that's like a weird question, but
I don't know. I think it was from the 90s.
There was a lot of payphones.
Yeah. I think it might have been 90s because the actress, she's Wednesday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Christina Ricci. Yeah,
that's her name. Yeah, her.
I know.
So I assume from her age, I assume it was that time. So.
Yeah. Which was so crazy. I was like, oh my... Because as soon as I saw like the intro and stuff, and I was like, oh, I'm like... And so...
She looks different with blonde, but she looks good.
I mean, she's beautiful. So, I mean, she could fucking shave her head and you'll be fine, But yeah, it was really like... once I started seeing like the photo booth and like, that, and then I saw it and I was like, oh shit, that was like spot on. You did a really good job with that.
I struggled with it a lot at home because I was using acrylic. I don't do a lot of acrylic. I like it, but for not for portraits, because it's harder to blend. I can't add as many like I can't add as much depth, you know, because the paint dries faster, so I can't like go back and blend.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I struggle with it, but I still thought it was a
When
cool
did you do
piece.
that one?
That was like during the pandemic.
Wow.
Before, I can't remember if it was before I got my studio or if I already had my studio, but I just wasn't painting in it, you know, so I was trying to stay creative at home or whatever.
So you have a lot, do you have a lot of paintings that you have for sale?
Why, you like it? Or
No, I mean, I you know, I'm trying to get you to sell a lot of these things. You're like,
no, yes and no. I feel like I get very attached to my paintings.
I was going to ask that too.
So a lot of them, I have them up in my studio and people are like, is this for sale? I'm like, no. So I should really invest in doing prints, but
yeah,
I should put them up for sale. There was these these paintings that I did like in 2017, 2018, and someone offered me a lot of money for it, and I was like, I'm sorry, they're so close to my heart, I can't let them go, but I'll make you a new, like the same thing but just in a different smaller portrait or whatever. And they're like, okay, and I ended up selling those. But now they're just sitting there in my store, not my storage, but like in the corner of my studio, and I'm like, man, I hate those pieces, I should have sold them.
What is it?
It was from Nightmare Before Christmas. It was like some portraits, and they're not bad, but I'm like, they're just sitting there. It's not my style anymore, you know. It was like 5-6 years ago, so I'm kind of like over them.
Yeah.
And my mom even told me the other day, because they came to visit me, she's like, eso los hubieras vendido. I'm like, I know, but I was so attached to them. So
yeah,
I'm trying not to be so attached, because I'm like, 5 years from now, I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, that artwork that I did was horrible. Like, why didn't I sell it? You know?
Yeah.
So I need to get...
I'm sure it's not horrible,
I need to cut the strings, but yeah.
Yeah. It's so, like, we had talked about it, like, before, where, you know, it's cool to see it through, like, Instagram and, like, see, you know, because you started posting in 2016. Mm-hmm. And so that's, like, 5 years now. And to see, like, your growth is really freaking cool. Yeah. You know, because it's, like, you get to see, like, your first post was, like, what was it? Remember. It was like the surreal, like,
oh yeah, like a mountain.
Yes.
Shape. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually recreated that same painting, and I have it up in my studio. It's one of the ones I don't want to let go. I repainted it like a couple years later because I really like my idea. It's just my skills weren't there yet. You know what I mean? And yeah, I feel like that's how it's always been. I feel like that's always been my struggle. It's like my mind and my creativity is somewhere else, and my skills are just like running to try to catch up to it.
That's so cool.
I think barely right now I'm kind of getting the hang of like realizing the way that I learn and how to teach. I mean, I learned a lot in school, but there's still like certain things that I didn't learn specifically to my vision now.
Yes.
Like, that I didn't know when I was in college or in high school. Like, I didn't know what direction I wanted to go with my art. And like my junior year, I had a sculpture professor, Keeley. He was like, I think he was like the person who taught me how to think like an artist, or realize how I was, like how to put in words what was going on in my head, like all the messiness.
That's interesting.
Yeah. He had us do this project where it was a sculpture class, but for one of our projects, he had us take pictures the whole semester of things that caught our eye. He's like, whether you hate it or you like it, just take a picture of it. And we'll do a presentation at the end of the semester, and you can just share with us what attracts you as an artist or as a person, you know.
Wow.
Like, and it was very eye-opening because I was going through my thing and I was like, wow, I take a lot of pictures of pink things. I take a lot of pictures of like dirty streets and like random things that I didn't even notice that I was like leaning towards visually, you know, that caught my eye. And then that kind of helped me to be like, what do I want to represent in my paintings, or what aesthetic am I into, you know, like.
It was so cool.
Yeah, it was very interesting because I know some things you do unintentionally, you know, it just happens naturally, which is cool.
Yeah.
But it's like when you're trying to get that same natural thing, but you don't know what you want to do, like it's hard for you to put it physically out there. Like, I don't know if this happens to you with clothes. Like, you have this idea and you kind of want this vibe, but you don't know how to put it down.
Well, I don't sketch.
You don't sketch?
No, I don't sketch. So I just have it in my mind.
Yeah.
And then Manny's like, what's your idea for that? And I'm like, and so I could explain it and be like, well, you know, I have like this thing where I want to do this kind of stitch and I want to, and then he's like, I don't know what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
But I'm so like where I feel like I'm very indecisive. So then tomorrow I'll change my mind.
Yeah.
And so I have to like, I
make
can't
it in the moment.
Draw it. And then expect for it to be like that. Because then the next day I'll be like, it doesn't look like that. And then I'll be like, what was your idea behind that? And then like seeing like fabric and like this going with that. And then you start putting it together and then you're like, no, it didn't.
It looked differently in my head.
Exactly. So then I'm like, oh. So then it's like if I sketch it, then I kind of feel like I wasted time with it, you know? But at the same time, it's like, you know,
that's kind of how you learn, though. Like trial and error. I feel at least with creatives, it's a trial and error kind of process.
And for a long time, I was like, well, then I'm not a designer. You know, like I can't sketch anything or, you know, but in my mind, like I've always carried it in there. And so I would be like, I could see it. And like, you know, the biggest like hard on is like when you like actually do it and you're like, it looks exactly like it looks in my head. And then you're like happy about it. But then it's like when it's not coming out, you're like, fuck, I need like 5 breaks.
I need to quit. Like I'm not an artist anymore. Yeah. So I feel like learning from him, it really taught me how to like materialize all those visuals and all those aesthetics or feelings or whatever that I had in my head and like put it into my art, and how to like intentionally do it, not just like random, because I know you can like intentionally be random. I don't know if that makes sense, you know, like you can just kind of whatever comes out, and those pieces are fine like if you're experimenting or if those are like your final pieces. But for me as a person, I needed a little bit more direction because I don't know, I like to plan things. I'm like a little bit controlling. Yeah. So that's fine. For me, I was like, I need to know I'm going into this with an intention. Otherwise, I'm not going to be happy with the results and I'm going to get discouraged and then I'm not going to paint for a couple months. And that's not going to get me to being an artist. Like, you know. Exactly. So with that class, I kind of learned a lot about myself as an artist, and that's kind of how I think this was like 2019, 2018. He was one of the last classes that I took before graduating, and that's kind of when I got into that mindset of like, okay, so I need to do this before I do a painting. I need to sketch it out. I need to put these colors down, or I need to look at these sort of images to inspire me, like figure out a process so that I can make it work. That's so cool. Because it's all muscle memory. Like, it really is. Like, I was thinking about that, like, with sports, with music, everything, it's muscle memory. Like, everyone's like, oh, you're so talented. And, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of talent at first, but it's the practice that gets you way farther. Yes. You know what I mean? Yes. Like, I totally agree. Yes. Yeah. And it took me so long to realize that because, I'd make a painting, I'd hate it, or it didn't come out how I wanted to be like, I'm not going to be an artist. Like, I literally wanted to quit, like, school, like, a few times because of that. Because I was like, no, I'm just lying to myself. It's just because my parents told me I was a good artist when I was little, so now I think I'm a good artist. You know what I mean? Like, it was those kind of feelings. But then I was like, no, it's something I really want to do. And I kind of started learning that I was like, I just need to find my path to being an artist. Maybe someone can just slap paint around and figure it out, and that's their process, and that's great, but that's not me. So I need to figure out what's good for me and what things I'm good at that I can represent in my art. Like, I had a person come in and they were like, what did they say? She was like, oh, I love all the feminine energy coming off of your paintings. So I was like, yes, that's very intentional. Like, like I was like, I don't know what she's talking about. Maybe it's just the pink since I used a lot of pink. Yeah. But it was just really funny having people come in and tell me stuff about my art that I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I was trying to do. That was the whole plan. Yeah. I'm a feminist in my paintings. But you know what? Yeah. That's so inspirational, like, that you have, like, this whole process of, like, this is what I do. And, like, even that picture, that whole, like, taking pictures, I'm going to try that.
Like, I'm gonna really try it and just try taking pictures of stuff that, like,
you'll learn so much about, like, your visual.
Eye. Yes. Because you know what? Like, for me, for a long time, I was like, I love, like urban, like, more where it's, like, graffiti mixed with, like, it's, like, in a random place and, like, you know, where it looks kind of like it's like the woods, but then it's not, and like that kind of, like, you know, concrete with color, but like then contrast. You also yes, and then you have like your greens, and so to me, I've always been like, oh my god, all this color, but then there's concrete and it's gray and it's cold and it's, you know, and that contrast, like, always, like, was like my biggest thing where I'm like, oh, I love that, you know, and so, like, I never, you know, like, I feel like I kind of try to mix a lot of that, but, you know, now that I'm thinking about it and you're like, oh, you should take pictures, you know, and I'm like, I'm going to fucking take pictures.
Yeah,
there's going to be random ass pictures in my phone. Yeah. And people are going to be like, what the hell? But it's so true.
Yeah,
like,
just make a separate album of it.
Yeah. No, and I've seen, like, a lot of people on Instagram that they kind of do, like, what is it? Like a drop, like a...
Oh, like a photo dump?
Yeah. And I'm like, interesting. Like, you know, because that's like, they don't go together or anything, but it's like, it's really cool to kind of see, you know, like, everything
like that moment or that second that tells them to be like, I'm gonna take a picture of this. Yes. You know, like when another person would have just walked right by, like, not even blink an eye.
So true.
Like, I went to Cancun a couple weeks ago with my husband, and we were passing by, you know, we're on a tour bus, whatever, we're going by, and I'm all taking pictures of some houses that I saw that are, like, bright colors, you know, like pink and blue and green, but they're really run down, or they have, like, just dirt and what do you call it, the palm trees and stuff, like, you know, and I like that contrast. I like that, like, dirty, not perfect, colorful
kind of. Yeah.
So, and I'm like, wow, look at that pretty house. And I'm all trying to take pictures. And he's like, what pretty house? I'm like, that pink one. He's like, that's not pretty. Like, what are you talking about? And for me, you know, I like those visuals. And it's funny because I feel like it kind of all ties back to, like, my childhood. And, like, to me, TJ was like heaven because we would go when it was summer break, so we didn't have school.
Yes.
My grandma was like always unconditional love, unconditional like food, like, you know what I mean? So for me, it's like good memories of being there.
Yeah.
And like I don't know if you've seen some pieces that I have of, like, nísperos.
Yes.
Those fruits.
Yeah.
That I don't have them. I don't have a tree. I don't have them anymore. And I love them, you know. And it's the same thing. They just bring me back to my childhood.
That's so
and
true.
I feel like it all kind of ties in subconsciously, you know.
Yes.
Because I'm not, like, thinking about it as I'm making a piece, but then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the color of a níspero, and this is the, you know.
Yeah. But it's so crazy because it's like, it's all, like, perspective, you know, when you're, like, going to TJ as a kid and you're like, my grandma, and, like, you know, these memories, and, you know, and so, and it was really because it's like you had such a great time as a kid, you know, and everything around it could have been like crap, but it's like you're having like this awesome time of, like, no life. School, and then you get to see your grandma, and grandma's like, every Mexican grandma is like the best, you know, because it's like as soon as they see you, they're like, what do you want? And then you're like, okay, you know, and so it's awesome, you know, but that's really super cool.
So it's just funny how, like, subconsciously you're attracted to these things, and that's why I thought that class was super interesting, that I learned about, like, intentionally choosing what I want to put into my artwork, you know, nice. Like, that kind of ties back into just my likes as a person, you know. And
I think that
I forgot what I was going with that.
No, and I think that gives, like, your art depth, you know, because then, like, that, it's not like you just, like, oh, I like this and I'm going to paint it. It's like you really, like, looking through your process and being like, subconsciously, like, I picked this color because for whatever reason, like, it warms my heart or whatever, or like there's some kind of, like, you know, thing
connection
behind it.
To exactly.
It, as opposed to just being like,
which that art is great too. I really appreciate, like, spontaneous, just, like, the aesthetics look really cool. It's just for my personal art that I like to create, I like it to be a little bit more, like, intimate, or have, like, little, not secrets in it, but you know what I mean, like, little moments that I had with that piece. that no one knows about.
I think that's probably why it's so difficult for you to sell a piece.
Yeah, it
because you're like, and then like the whole process of like just creating something and you putting in so much time and like energy and like emotions. Because that, like, it's not like if you sit there for, like, an hour and you're like, I'm done.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's funny because the pieces that I've done, like, oh, I'm just going to make this because people like this image and it's just going to sell.
Yeah.
It doesn't. People don't like it as much. I'm like, I guess I literally have to pour my heart into it for people to be like, hey, I want your art, you know.
Yeah.
Other than commissions, because I always do put a little bit of my heart into commissions because I know it's people's, like, family members or loved ones. And, like, I've actually gotten a lot that have been, like, family members that passed away.
Wow.
So, yeah, and it's like, in that sense, I like to be more sensitive with it, you know, and paint it privately and kind of, like,
and what an honor to, like, be able to, like,
I know,
you know, basically, like, create something for someone that has passed, and then you capture everything about that person, you know, that's, like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's super cool, though.
And I feel like for me, how I told you that my grandma had passed and I painted her, I was like literally like in tears painting her, you know, but that was like a very important, I think, part of my mourning for her and just kind of, you know, so I can understand how that's for people. Like I've given people their paintings and they like start crying and I'm like, oh, I'm like crying there with them, you know what I mean? And I really like that I can give that same experience that I had with my own personal, you know, grandmother to pass that to other people, even though, you know, they're not actually painting it or whatever, but that they have that like image of them,
because you capture them so well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so that's probably like the whole thing behind it, you know. Do you want to say who you are? Because
yes, I'm Melissa, but I go by Melicha for my art.
Is there a reason why you go by Melicha?
It actually I started my Instagram and, actually, they used to call me Melicha when I was little. Like, that was just my nickname, like, when I was little. I think I couldn't say my own name, so I would call myself Melicha. Like,
that's so cute.
Yeah, something like that.
I love that, too.
Yeah. So then when I made my Instagram, I was Melicha_3.
Yeah.
And then in the future, I did my art Instagram, so I was like, I'll just do the same Melicha name so people know it's me, you know? Yeah. So I did Melicha_art. And then it was funny because when I started getting more people asking me about my art or commissions or whatever, they'd be like, hi, Melicha, I was just wondering. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they think that's my actual name. Like, that's so funny. So then I kind of just wanted to roll with it, you know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I'm going to call you that too now.
Yeah, and I totally like it. My sisters still call me that, you know, and yes, but I know it's not really anonymous, but I like the idea of it kind of being anonymous. Yeah. Like, I'll tell you my name, though. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm Melicha only for you, you know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Well, it's so crazy because, like, I've had, like, you know, like, people come in and they're like, hey, Loka. And I'm like, hey, you know? Yeah. And then they're like, the next time I see them, they're like, I am so sorry. And I was like, why? They're like, I was not aware that Loka means crazy. And I was like, it does. And so, you know, to me, I'm like, you know, then I jokingly, I'm like, dude, I've been called worse shit. Like, you could definitely call me that, you know? And some people think that that's like my name, like, so. And then I'm like, that's I funny. Wish, you know, but, you know, and I feel like nowadays it's like, it's so crazy to like even know people's real name. Cause then you're like, oh, we're going to interview Melicha Art. And then you're like, oh, okay, I know exactly who that is, you know? Yeah. But if you say, oh, I'm going to interview Melissa, they're like, which one? Or, you know? And so it's like, it's a really cool, like, you know, like way of like identifying like you as like an artist and like as a person and stuff like that. So, yeah. Are you working on anything fun? Right now, no. Well, yes and no. I don't want to say that it's not fun. I have like one more commission to get done. And then I'm working on a painting that I started like in the beginning of the year of my grandparents and my aunt. They've all passed, you know, so I kind of want to like finish that and hang that in my studio just for me, have them like watching over me. So that I will hopefully get onto like soon after I finish this one commission, and then I'll be doing that. And I have one more plywood art show that I'm doing at the end of the month. I saw.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure what I'm doing on it yet, so I don't know if it's fun or not or yet. I'll post about it, though, when I do decide what I'm doing on it.
That's going to be fun.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that. Hey, I had a really good time getting to know you because you're very mysterious to me. But I did a lot of homework on you, so I feel like I could have obviously talked for a way longer time and asked all kinds of questions and stuff, but it was really a pleasure to have you. Yeah, so and nice you're very inspirational, and I just like love everything.
Imposter syndrome, no.
Oh, dude, I have it like all the time. So yeah I had a great time getting to know you.
Me too.
Yeah, and getting to see all the fun stuff. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime. Sorry, guys. I could have freaking... I know I could fucking talk like forever. You guys are like, it's fucking hot. It's a fucking sauna. Let's get this shit done.